All right, everybody. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast. I am joined by a familiar guest, a good friend of mine, Mr. Matt Jennings. Matt is just a known killer. And so we talk through kind of what he's doing right now to get prepared. We talk about just kind of the expectations going into a season. We talk about having realistic expectations. We talk about, the idea that everybody wants to kill a 180, but the truth of the matter is if you've got deer on your property that, the biggest deer is a 140, then you've got to have realistic expectations going into that year. We talk a lot about just tag changes and cost of tags going up and opportunities in different states that we hunt changing. It's a really good episode. We talk about bow setups. We talk about optimizing bow setups in order to get the most out of it for whitetail hunting. We just have a fun conversation. Guys, I also want to encourage you. I am in full mode getting ready for elk season, and I'm relying heavily on Mountain Ops products right now, and they are also celebrating their 10-year anniversary. So this is the biggest sale that you're going to find on Mountain Ops. Everything is 30% off, and if you use my code TYPICAL, that's all caps, TYPICAL, you're going to get it 30% off and free shipping. Ignite is my favorite product ever. I rely heavily on it just day to day. Take it before a podcast just to get some mental clarity and some energy. So go check out that big sale going on. Also, ScentLock is getting ready with some new stuff coming out this fall. I'm always excited when ScentLock drops new stuff because they're constantly filling in little holes. They listen to customer feedback with the Bow Hunter Elite series and kind of what some things are missing in a bow hunting kit that people want. And so there's some exciting things coming from ScentLock. But guys, they also have everything you need to get ready for this whitetail season, whether it be early season sets and it's hot, or whether you're getting into that bitter cold late season and you really need to stay warm. They've got everything you need. And that BE1 toolkit, the Bow Hunter Elite toolkit, is built for bow hunters by bow hunters. So they know what we need. It's a phenomenal kit. So guys, go check out ScentLock as you get ready for this fall. But let's dive in with Mr. Matt Jennings and have a good conversation about killing some deer.
With over 90 years of innovation, Bear Archery continues pushing toward the goal of founder Fred Bear, making archery accessible for all. Fred believed the history of the bow and arrow were the history of mankind, and everyone should immerse themselves in the outdoor experience. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast, where the mission is simple: to hunt, grow, and inspire others.
So headed back from Oklahoma, what were you working on in Oklahoma?
Oh man, just getting everything dialed up for this fall. Moving some pins around, fixing pins, putting up some Mavericks, you name it. We was doing it, trying to put in a few water pits. Sweating to death, working from daylight till dark,
Yeah, dude, it's like a high of like 105 today.
Yeah, the fun stuff nobody sees. They only get to see the 22 minutes of the glory and the fame. They don't get to see the other 365 that goes along with it,
That's the thing, dude. Like, so many people, that's what's hard about whitetail hunting is there is a bit of luck involved in the game. Like, you got to be in the right place at the right time. But you hear it all the time of like Matt Jennings, he kills stuff constantly all the time. Well, he's also working all the time. Like, he's also putting in the work. Yep. He's driving across the country just to hang stands and put in water and, make sure they have the supplements they need. You work your tail off, dude, and you deserve it, man. So when fall rolls around and people are like, well, how do you roll into Oklahoma and just kill a buck? Well, I put in the work all summer long,
Yep, that goes a long way with, I learned a long time ago, you get in what you put in, and yeah, like you said, lady luck, right. It's got a little bit to do with that, but, when expectations, people, sponsors, whoever, fans, you've done set this plateau for yourself, and that just puts more pressure on you to do better the next year. And this thing got to the point now where I'm like, how do you make it? How how do you do better? Well, you got to go do more work. You got to put the sweat in now so you can get the blood come, this fall. And the biggest thing is just being prepared. And when you get there, you can actually hunt instead of, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to get stuff ready to hunt and taken away from your day's hunting. And then you can just go straight into it and hopefully pray to God, you got a deer pattern. And especially, early season, like we did Method Man last year. And it goes a long way, man, especially with cell cameras. You can go do work and then, like, I'm driving 16 hours one way to this property.
Right.
And then you just sit there and, after you do all the work, you just sit back and you got the luxury now looking at your phone and letting you know what's what spots to go to and what spots to put more into and which ones it's not turned on yet. And, it cuts the guessing game out.
Right. And that's what, that's where cellular trail cameras play such a big role. And like, I get it if, I understand they're not for everybody. If you're hunting on your own 40-acre piece and you can roll back there and pull your card and you're not too worried about it, that's fine. But, if you're spread out and we're not even talking different states, but if you're spread out and, you've got cameras 40 miles, well, I don't want to drive 40 miles to pull a card, especially if I'm rolling into a state, we both hunt Oklahoma kind of similar. If I have an opening, I'm going to drive down to Oklahoma and try to hunt. I don't have time to, I can't think ahead and say, okay, well, in 3 days, I'm going to have an opening. So I need to go down and pull a card now. That way in 3 days, it just doesn't work that way. I need to be able to have that intel in the palm of my hand and say, okay, well, this stand, the bucks are showing up here at 7:45. They're showing up over here at 8:15, and start to build that pattern before I get there. That way it's not, I'm wasting as little hunting time as I have to. And that's where cellular trail cameras play such a unique role. And, Pope and Young recently put out a new position statement on trail cameras, on cellular trail cameras. Used to be that if a deer was ever caught on trail camera, then it was unethical to kill that deer. Which just, with the advances in technology, you just can't say that anymore because, for instance, I've got friends who use trail cameras for around their house. They can, going up their driveway, they can see who's pulling out of the driveway.
Surveillance.
So you mean to tell me if a deer walks across that driveway in August, I kill him in November, then it was unethical to kill that deer? Well, no, that's just not, you can't play that card anymore. And so recently they changed their position statement to say, as long as you're not using the hunt in real time, then it's ethical to use them. In other words, I can't get a picture of a deer and say, oh, he's at feeder 4 and then run out to feeder 4 and kill him. Yeah, that's unethical. But to use them to pattern deer and to use them for year-long intel and not have to go to your stand every, to go to your camera every month to check it, perfectly ethical to do that, to do it in that sense. And so, and that's where they play such a vital role, especially for guys like yourself who are hunting, Lord, 74 states, seems like.
Oh, yeah, because I had this guy tell me one time, he said, it don't matter how much money you got or what you so forth. He said, there's one thing you can't buy and you can't get back, and that's time. And that's the most valuable thing in this world. And those cell cameras, that saves my time. I can spend that time with my family instead of driving out, knowing what's there in my hand 24/7. I got access to it. I know what my battery levels are. I know everything off that Moultrie mobile app, hands down. And it saves me time. I can't buy time. You can't buy time. Donald Trump can't buy time. And that is the biggest thing. And as high as gas is right now,
God.
that's a no-brainer. And it makes my job so not easy, but it helps me tremendously. I always say them cell cameras they're one of my biggest tools in my arsenal because it helps me be successful. It helps me narrow down the playing field on what I want to do and how I want to do it and when I need to go in and when the right time to go in, without boogering them deer.
Do you run cameras year round?
I do on my home farms around Bama just because I love looking at them. But usually I'll crank them up, usually June, maybe a little before. I'll run them through turkey season, on some places, just to look at them. And but usually I don't really get, like, I got that switch flips about June. End of May, 1st of June, it flips, and it's go time.
Yeah.
To go see what we got. And then, like, as much rain has been down, in the Midwest, Missouri, Illinois, and so forth. Like, I could tell a month ago what deer was what that I let walk last year, because they're so much further along for all the rainfall.
Right.
And then, but I don't know if you've been in Oklahoma much lately, but it's by far the greenest I've ever seen it. Like, it's absolutely, like, there'll be some straight hammers come out of that state, or all them states in that area this year, just because of the rain.
Yeah. Now, you have your kind of regular rotation of states. Are you adding any states, taking away any states, do anything new this year?
I'm gonna do muzzleloader in Illinois, and I might gun hunt Missouri. And my boys at Powdered String supposed to be hooking me up with a cannon for muzzleloader season. So I'm gonna throw that in there. I might try to go to Ohio if I have time. I'm gonna go back to Mexico January, February, just because it was a pretty neat deal last year, and try to do that, and just do what I got to do,
Yeah.
to get it to do a little better.
Now, here's the hard part, I think, for guys like yourself who continually find so much success. I mean, you had a 1,200 inch season, then a 1,600 inch season, like just constantly killing more and bigger deer. How do you continue to push yourself? Like how do you continue to, and not that every year has to be better. I'm not trying to insinuate that. I'm not saying if you don't improve every year, then you're not doing well, but so many guys, you talk to them like, well, I haven't hunted in, 5 or 6 years. And you're like, well, why not? Well, I killed a 190, dude. I'm never going to kill a deer bigger than that. So there's just not much joy in it anymore. And I'm like, well, there's other ways to push yourself. There's other things to try. There's new challenges. So how do you continue to try to improve and try to get better on a season?
Just, I'm just programmed different, I guess. I want to be that guy. Like, everybody, there's no such thing as a professional hunter, in my opinion. Everybody straps their boots up, 1 foot at a time. And it just goes back to what you put into it. And I know a lot of really good hunters that don't have the property that's got the big deer on it. Big deer, they might have the 120-inch deer. They'll go in there and kill that deer. And then you got your mediocre hunters that's got property that's got, 150s on it. And, they might luck up and kill them. But getting to the pushing yourself is just, I'm competitive for one. And I guess the biggest part, man, I just love it. Like, it's my mistress. It was my first love before my wife and my boys come along. And to the day I die, she'll always be my mistress. I've never been obsessed with anything but deer hunting. And I just love the process. I love being able to go in there and figure it out and fooling that big, mature buck. It's satisfying. Like, for instance, we were on that new piece of property the other day, me and my producer, Ty Allen, and my buddy Tyler was showing me. We went in there, and like, I've never set foot on this property. I've never seen it. And he kind of showed me, the high spots, and he was going to go spray a food plot that we got. And so I told Ty, I said, let's roll over here. I said, it's got a feeling about this spot over here. And we wasn't on that property 5 minutes, and I went to where my gut told me, and literally I was sitting there on the side by side, dropped in, and I seen something out of the corner of my eye, and I looked, and there's this absolute giant stands up. He was probably mid-70s or 80s, and I lost it. Like, I got jacked. And Ty looks at me and he goes, "How'd you know that?" And I was like, "Man, it just felt right, you know."
Yeah.
And so, long story short, we have to build pens to put our feeders and stuff in to keep the cows out and the hogs out. They'll just absolutely, demolish them. And I call that my redneck high fence, because everybody wants to throw salt on, when they see them. Well, it's a high fence. No, it's not. It's to keep the freaking cows and the hogs out. That's it. And we went in there and built one, and I made it bigger just because I've learned the bigger the pens are, the more comfortable the deer are. They're not on top of each other. And I set it up to the best that I could that I thought that would work. And within 2 days of being there, driving fence post and absolutely just blowing this place out, I probably got $3 already, over 160 on it in daylight. Just like that, because I know as hot as it is, they're just like us. They're not going to want to walk a mile to go eat something or drink something. They're going to go to the most convenient place ever. And I went to their bedroom, and I knew the way that sun was going to be setting, there's a little hillside and it gives it cover or in the shade. And morning, same deal. And, we went to their bedroom, and I might not kill one out of it, but I went amongst them and I figured them out within, 5 minutes of being on the property. And that motivates me more to do better, I guess. Yeah. And like coming home on a 16-hour drive, I'm almost home. I'm like, man, what more? Because we got to go back down there and put up our Mavericks and stuff and our blinds. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I need to tweak to make it better? Like my brain's already running 100 miles an hour on what more do I need to do, And I think that's what you got to have, something to look forward to. That's what drives every person,
For
something
sure.
to look forward to.
Now, when does well, you said something that I really appreciate, because we live in a social media driven world and people are seeing big deer killed all the time. And, I've been guilty of it. I'm sure everybody has, of thinking like, man, I wish I could kill a 180. Well, if I don't have properties that have 180s, I'm not going to kill a 180.
You're not going to kill him. No, you're 100% correct.
And I think what the world just needs to understand, what the hunting community needs to understand, is have realistic expectations. If you go into a property and the biggest deer you've got is 143 inches and you shoot that 143 inch deer, you did the best that you could possibly do. You tricked the biggest, most mature buck on your property. And so you have to have realistic expectations. And if I go into Arkansas to hunt, that's where I'm from. That's where I'm born and raised at. I cut my teeth on hunting in the Ozarks, and I go back there every year to hunt Thanksgiving with my dad. And when I go into there, dude, if I see 110 inch deer, I'm shooting it. And you have to put, where am I hunting and what are the quality of deer I'm hunting? You have to put that into reality. And you can't let, if I'm hunting in the Ozarks and I see a 120 inch deer walk by, I can't say, oh, he's not quite big enough yet. I'm going to absolutely shoot that deer and I'm going to be ecstatic. And there's deer that I've shot, if you take one given year and I shoot a 120 in Arkansas, but I shoot a 140 in Kansas, I mean, that 120 to me is a more of accomplishment than shooting the 140 in Kansas. And so, and people it's hard for them to understand that. It's hard to understand, dude. I went on a piece of property, I had 400 acres and I picked out the biggest, most mature deer and I hunted until I killed that deer. Sure, it's not a 180, but for that area, this is a tank, this is a stud, and that is something to celebrate. And so I appreciate you saying that, man, because the way that I look at good hunters, and being that I work for Pope and Young, I get to talk to some really good hunters. I get to talk to some of the best, all the new world record holders. And if somebody asks me who's the best hunter, if somebody were to say who's the best deer hunter, it's not who killed the world record. It's not who
Yeah.
killed the top 5. It's who's consistently killing mature animals. And that's what I look at as a good hunter. And I think about it in a way of, if I could drop you off on a property, if I could take Matt Jennings to a brand new property he's never laid eyes on and said, Matt, you've got a week, go get it done. And he can get it done. That's how I justify, and that's how I consider somebody to be a good hunter. Not just because they've one time killed a 180 or one time killed a 190, but somebody who can go in and consistently kill an animal, a big mature animal. Inches doesn't matter, but taking into consideration the property, the state, the location, and they go in and kill a big mature animal, that to me is what makes somebody a good hunter.
Yeah, knowing a woodsman. I mean, just like last year, for instance, what you just said. Nobody ever know it, but that big deer I killed in Missouri, literally we drove all night long, got there on the 28th, and or the 29th, sun was coming up. I slept for maybe 2 or 3 hours, kicked Jason out of the bed. It was pouring rain. Me and him drove to this property. I've never set foot on it, never seen it, never looked at an aerial, nothing. And like I said, now it's probably 30 degrees. It's cold. And first big cold snap we had. And couldn't drive on the property, couldn't get our Kaufmans on there because everything was so wet. And so just, only thing you do was put boots on the ground. That's what we done. And we walked and we walked and we walked. And I finally found a spot that was like cling. And Jason, he's got to say it. He said, well, what's your superpowers telling you? And I was like, that big oak right there. I said, only downside is, I said, you're going to have to take that Hooyman extended saw and fish me around these ratchet straps because the tree's so big. I said, here, that's the only problem we got. And literally, I hung those stands. I put up 3 edge cameras. It was raining the next morning. We went in at 12:30 on October the 30th. Got in the stand. 3:30, I was done on the ground, shot a 160.
Jeez.
Now, lady luck for sure. But see, them deer, that buck, he was done locked down with a yearling doe. And
Right.
so many people, man, the rut don't start till November 1st. Bull crap.
Halloween
think
day.
During the lull, when that first full moon hits, you got some select does that go in heat. And then bucks get locked up on them. And when that happens, when November 1st rolls around, they're locked down. You're just seeing little, the JV squad running around looking for a chick. And the big boys are locked down. Well, that's exactly what he was. He was locked down. And I'll never forget it. I think that's episode, 4 maybe, 3 or 4. And he was in a food plot that Terry put in for me. And I don't think the camera, when you watch the episode, you ever see the doe. But she's there, and I had one big limb overhanging, and I had him at 60 yards, couldn't shoot him, and he just put on a show for a good probably 30, 40 minutes. Worked a scrape, rubbed a tree, like done everything a deer hunter could dream of. And there was a little bitty bend in that field, and finally I let him clear that bend. He went around it, and I had that new Woodhaven Midwest Grunner. First time I ever used it. And I ripped on that sucker and I rattled, called in another buck. And in my head, I'm like, if he sees this deer, if he's still there and he sees this buck, he's coming back, because every other buck that come up, he'd walked them off. And sure enough, I hear Jason say, here he come, get ready. He comes around, and just so happens he got a little too close that time. And when I shot him, the only picture I had of that deer was my air going through him on that edge trail camera. Only picture I had of that deer. And I always say during the rut, during the rut, I don't prep for that, because it's no holds barred, dude. You know how that is.
100%.
Throw the rule book out the window, put your helmet on, buckle up your chin strap, and go off straight killer instinct. And I think that's why I've been so successful, because I don't go off. It's great to run trail cameras during the rut, see what bucks are showing up. But I'm not going to hunt off a trail camera. I'm going to go to where Matthew thinks that I can go kill a deer. Because the times I have hunted a trail camera, I got my butt whipped. John
Yeah.
Wayne was one of them. I chased that sucker. In circles till I was dizzy. And finally, he showed up at one spot, and I was like, I ain't going there. We're going to go over here. And he come out right at dusky dark, and I blistered him. If I'd have followed that camera, I knew he was still in the area. But a lot of people, they want to hunt them trail cameras. During the rut, man, throw the rule book out and go hunt them. That's all you can do is just hunt them. They're going to do
100%.
deer stuff. Just go hunt them. They don't give a crap if it's 90 degrees or, 20 degrees. They're still doing it somewhere. And a long time ago, we was hunting Illinois on one of my good buddies' property, and he was hunting a hollow over from me. And I was having the hunt of my life. He ain't seen a deer. Now, we're a hollow apart, a ridge apart. And it's no holds bar where I'm sitting at. And he ain't seen a deer. And he's like, man, I don't think the rut's going on. And I'm like, bud, it's full blown. You're 100, 200 yards off the X. And that deer I killed in Illinois, it was 74 degrees. And I riled that buck up at 2:30. You know? And they're still doing deer stuff. You just got to go to that heat cover and make the right decisions and pray to God that whatever decision you do make is the right one,
Yeah, dude, I had a situation a lot like that in Oklahoma last year. I trusted the cameras, and I'm like, dude, he showed up every night here at 7:00, every night, like clockwork, 7:04 every night, literally within like 20 seconds of each other every night for 4 nights in a row. And so my place in Oklahoma is just about 2 hours away, and so I had a lot of stuff going on, but I'm like, I can drive down for an evening set, and I'm going to kill this deer. And so I take off, haul off. I sit in that stand, and I'm sitting there, and at like 6:30, my phone goes off, and I get a text. He's at another place, at another camera, and I'm like, crap, dude. And that's honestly where I thought I would kill him. Like, I thought I'll kill him over there, but then the trail camera tricked me, and I'm like, every night at 7:04, like clockwork, dude, he's right here. And so I drove all the way down there, sat in that stand, and I hardly ever take a cameraman, but this was a giant deer, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to kill him at 7:04 tonight. And so I packed up a cameraman, took him down there with me, and we're sitting there, and sure enough, my phone dings, and I'm like, dude, he's stinking 300 yards away at another stand. And and like I said, I knew.
And
like
that's the worst. And
Yeah.
that is the worst feeling of a deer hunter, is sitting in a stand.
100%.
And that sucker shows up on the other side of the property, which, at any given time, he can mosey on over to where you're at. But it's like, it just lets the hair out of you.
100%.
And it's just like, it's gut wrenching.
Yeah.
But you learn from your mistakes. And if you'd have went to that other stand and he just showed up at the other stand, you dang if you do, dang if you don't.
Yeah. Now, you talked about that Missouri piece and just finding that just spot. Like, here it is. This is where it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for? Like, if you roll onto a new property and you're just boots on the ground looking for somewhere to hang, I mean, what all kind of signs are coming together to make you think this is where I need to be?
If it's during the rut, usually I'm going to look for that heat cover. And what that means is, you've talked about this 1,000 times, is where them does, when they start going into estrus. When I was younger, nobody, taught me or told me, when a doe goes in estrus, she wants to be by herself. She don't want to be around nobody else.
Right.
And she wants to go get away. Well, when I was little, when the rut hit, hey, let's go sit in this shooting house that my dad built. Let's go sit on the edge of a food plot. That's how I come up. And, in the Midwest, if you can find that heat cover with them, it could be a big ridge or a draw, or just blowdowns is one of the biggest keys, I think, because they can crawl in them and hide. And man, if you can ever time it right, you'll have the hunt of your life in heat cover, because them bucks are going to come cruising through there trying to bump those does up. And it's so cool to watch them and how they act and so forth. But this really, on setting up wise, depending on what time of year it is, if I think it's, it's going on type deal, like that that stand that I hung in Missouri, it was a killing tree, but I could see a long ways. I could see 60% of that property CRP fields. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, if this ain't the spot, I can see which spot is. So I could set off without going in there blowing it out and set back at afar. And if I did see a good one at afar, the next day I'm going to come in with a decoy. I'm going to sit in the same spot. I'm going to run a decoy and bring him to me.
Right.
But observation, I think, is a really good spot. But if you go in there, man, like they was rubs, I put in some mock scrapes and just the little stuff. Like the wind could make a spot absolutely horrible, or it could make it dynamite. Like, because in bucks, if, for instance, me and where was I at? We was in Illinois. This was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I hunted this set for 3 days. Seen some pretty decent deer out of it, but nothing crazy. And Levi Wilson was filming. I'll never forget it. I told him, I said, if we can get a wind that's blowing toward that river, I said, them bucks, when they come off that river, they're going to run this little finger to see if they can catch a doe in heat. Now, like I said, I've done hunted this spot 3 or 4 days. Hadn't seen a lot. Seen a few decent bucks. I wouldn't have shot them, but nothing crazy. That next morning, I had a north wind. Wind hit me right in the back of my head, blowing right where I wanted it to go. And by 8:30, I'd killed a 152. And he'd done exactly what I said. He'd come across that river, dripping wet, run down the middle of this big wheat field, and run the edge of that wood line, head up in there, trying to, smell a doe in that little thicket that I was sitting beside. And he got. Wind can play a huge factor during the rut, man. Like I've seen it time and time again. It could be blowing, east and it suck. And man, if it turns, west, northwest, southwest the next day, where it gives them bucks where they come in and smell, it's a game changer.
Yeah. That's another thing about the October lull, that if people would just use a little bit of common sense. People think, oh, the deer aren't here no more. They're all bedded down for the month of October. I mean, just think about it. Everything in October completely changes. Bachelor groups are breaking up. You've got different food sources coming into play. They're coming out of the open fields, eating you got to think, you're cutting off a whole lot of food sources that you, when you're driving down the road in the summer, you see them out in the open fields because they're standing food sources. Well, in October, the food source starts to change. They start heading into the hardwoods for acorns. They get off of the wide open fields. And you just have to change the mentality of how you're hunting. Yeah, you're not going to see them out in the wide open field no more.
Smarter.
Yeah, 100%.
A little bit smarter, And to me, my favorite time just about to hunt is during the lull. I've killed just as many big deer, or probably more big deer, from October 11th through October the 16th. I killed Method Man on Friday the 13th, 198-inch mega hammer, deer of a lifetime, and I watched him work 2 scrapes before he got to me. And he was coming in to send check those does, and just so happens my cell camera let me know he quit being nocturnal. We drove all night long, and we got opportunity at him,
Yeah. Here's a question for you. What happens if you find a piece? Say that tree that you found in Missouri was just, this is where the deer are going to be, but there's no good wind to hunt it. Like there are deer coming from every direction. There's bedding areas behind you. There's food sources in front of you. There's just no good optimal wind, or there's no good access point. What do you do in that situation?
Access point, I'm more worried about that than my wind, because me personally, we're scent locked up from head to toe, but a good win for me is a bad win for him, and a good win for him is a bad win for me, because that deer, he's going to come. If he's a sure enough stone pony, as my buddy calls him, he's going to come downwind. I don't give a crap what they say, what books you read. They're going to 99% of the time come downwind, and you just got to beat him. That's all you can do. That's it. Now your thermals, 100%, play a huge role in it. But I would say access, yeah, that's a must, because if you blow them out before you get there, you're already beat before you ever touch the platform.
That's the thing that people don't consider enough when whitetail hunting is thermals. You head out west and you consider it, and it does play a bigger role, in my opinion, out west, but still plays a massive role in your whitetail success. If you don't have a good wind, hang a high set and hunt it in the morning when the thermals are rising. You're already 100%. High enough, and it's going to carry your thermals up. Or sit in a ground blind at night with dropping thermals and pack your scent into that ground blind.
100%.
But so many people don't consider their thermals when they're whitetail hunting, and you have to.
Yep.
You absolutely have to. If you think, well, I've got the perfect wind. Well, you do, but your thermals are going to be dropping, and it's going to be dropping right into that bedding area. You think your wind's blowing over that thermal area. You think this travel corridor, I can get my wind, I can get high enough, and it's going to blow over that. And yeah, if you hunt it in the morning, you can. But if you hunt it in the evening, your thermals are going to be pushing it right down into that bedding area, or right over that, right into that travel corridor. And you're going to get busted every single time. You have to consider your thermals when you're whitetail hunting.
Well, I had a deer this past year. I think it's episode 5 or 6 this year. We're in Kentucky up at Whitetail Project. And we're hunting a field that's got several giants on it. And we had it's 100 degrees, man. It's hot. And we had a decent, okay wind. We're hunting a big bean field, chum pile, Kentucky, textbook 101, how they hunt up there. But if you look in these big soybean fields or cornfields, you'll see drainages, you'll see ditches, little zigzags, so forth. Well, we're sitting there that evening, and I look to my right. Here comes the 6.5, and it's still 45 minutes before dark. It ain't even really got goods yet, and here he comes, buddy, trotting to his beelining. Well, I noticed, this is a wide open field, man, but he's zigzagging. I'm like, what is he doing? And I watched this deer come from 400 yards out, but he's zigzagging the whole time. And what he was doing was hitting those little ditches in that field. He gets about 100 yards from me. He hits that last little drainage. Guess what he done? He caught my thermals. Because my thermals was those drainages. And that sucker, as bad as I hate to admit it, that sucker locked up like a Mack truck and turned around and run off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, yeah, but there's nothing in that scenario that I could have done different besides maybe, being a sealed, some kind of, shooting house or blind or elevated blind. That might have helped, but I didn't have that luxury. And as patternable as you can do in my early season, I overlooked that, and long story short, it screwed me because I overlooked it. But he taught me a very, 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 very valuable lesson that day. He beat me.
That's another thing that people don't consider enough. If you're hunting a river's edge and you've got a wind dropping into that river's edge, the thermals of that river are going to carry your scent. And that's why I tell 100%. People man, milkweed is the best thing that you could use for a thermal checker and a wind checker, because it's going to carry it'll carry with the thermal. So you can see, okay, it's hitting that ditch and then carrying down that drainage or whatever. And so that's why it's such good, other than just powder where you can watch it for, 3 feet and see, okay, my wind's blowing that way. You can watch that little white fluff just flow with the thermals. And is it going up? Is it going down? Is it dropping into that creek? Is it dropping in that drainage? Where is it going? And you can watch it for a long ways and see where is it going to end up at? Where is it dropping off at? All that good stuff. So now on your whitetail setup, let me just say this. I got a comment. I did a video a few days ago, and somebody commented on this bow hanging right here and said, you don't even have sights on it yet. It's because I just got my Swift Duo in, which I've been waiting on for a long time. It's actually sitting right here on this table, and I'm waiting to bolt it on and get out and sight it in once it's not 175 degrees outside.
I understand.
So yes, I will have a sight on the bow. I'm sorry it's not on there right now. So, what's your whitetail setup for the year, man?
I'm gonna shoot that old wooden bow that Bear's coming out with this year. You know. No,
Oh
I'll
yeah,
probably, that I don't think it's out yet, but I'll start out the year with that Persist 100%. I had tremendous luck with it last year, and it's hard to. That's the only thing I don't like about my job is when anybody, they have their favorite clothes or favorite tool or favorite bow or favorite gun. I always have to use what's the newest, latest and greatest.
yeah.
But when you got confidence and stoned in something else, it's hard to set it down, man. And I think everybody's like that. But that Persist, she was a absolute showstopper last year. She done something that I don't think nobody in this world's ever done. And I'm gonna start out with it, and I'm just gonna rock that, and then shoot the Trophy Ridge sights.
You run a single pin?
One roll pin, single pin, 100%.
Really?
Yeah, I can't shoot. If I got to shoot a multi-pin, I would take a set of wire snips and I will cut every one of them off but one.
Really?
I just can't do it. My eyes, I just can't. It's too big of a cluster to me.
So
I was little,
how do you set that single pin up? Because I get a lot of questions about that. Like, what's the optimal way to set up a single pin for whitetail hunting? Because we've all been there where we think a deer's coming at 30 and we set the single pin at 30 and then it comes at 15 and we change it to 15. Then it takes a bound out to 27. We change it back to 27. We've all been there. So how do you set up your single pin optimally to hunt whitetails?
Well, when you say that, they're overthinking it way too much. My guys up in my bow shop, they've been setting my bows up, man, since I was a little shorty. And I get my sight computer tuned to that bow. Like, it is designed for my bow. And that's my swagger for my bow setup. And as dumb as it sounds, I will call them. Y'all got ink for the printer? And if they don't, I will take ink with me, because I'm not leaving that bow shop without that tape. That's just, that's my confidence. And how it's designed is there's a certain formula they go about doing it, from, poundage to draw like the speed of your bow, arrow length, so forth. And it calculates something. And you've seen what I've done with that sight tape and run out of tape.
Yeah.
It's pretty dang accurate. It's dead on. And how I do it is I'll get my bow in the yard and I'll get it close at 30 and I'll back up to 40. And I will get it dead nuts at 40 and I will put my sight tape on it. And when I do that, everything else lays into place. I ain't got to worry about nothing. And which them bears, they shoot so fast. If I always usually keep my roll pin on 25 regardless. And I know if that deer's at 2 yards, I ain't moving that pin. I'm just going to aim a smidge low. If that deer's at 35 yards, I'm going to hold that joker's center body mass and I'm going to let her rip and I'm going to blow his lungs out. That's just how the speed takes, it takes an effect on that. Now, if he's out a little bit further, yeah, you might have to do some adjusting, but I'll try to practice in the yard just for those scenarios where if it's in the rut and it's, you got a buck that's coming in 100 miles an hour, like we've all had him at 10 yards, and next thing you know, he's at 40 yards, but you're at full draw. So I'll make myself in my yard shoot at 40 yards with my roll pin on 25 just to see how high I need to, hold above that deer, or what adjustments I need to make without touching that dial. Just so because that moment will come for me and everybody else, if they hunt long enough and, just like we said earlier, being prepared, in that moment, that 5 seconds that, it can either make you or break you.
Yeah. And I will say this, like for the guys that are worried about it, which I don't run a single pin, but in the past when I have, I mean, if you think about a 3-pin, there's only a 1/2 inch difference between your 20 and your 40. There's not a foot difference. You're not holding 7 inches above his back. I mean, if you raise it up, a 1/4 inch, there's your 30. If you raise it up the rest of another 1/4 inch, there's your 40. I mean, you're only holding an inch high. And so like Matt said, if you hold center mass of that deer, you're going to hit bottom third and be right where you want to be anyways. So it's not real confusing, and there are ways to figure out, and I'm by no means can run it down on this podcast, but you can figure out optimally where is that pin best set. Where's the peak of that arrow flight at? And so for some setups, it might be 27 yards, and that's going to give you the biggest, gap range from 10 to 40, where you can, not have to hold as high at 10, but not have to hold as low on 10 and have to hold as high on 40. There is an optimal place to set that pin where you're going to get the widest range of being able to hold that pin without holding it 6 inches high. Yeah. If you set your pin at 10 and have to shoot at 50, that's a pretty big gap you're holding. But if you set it at 25, 27, then you really don't have to make much of an adjustment at 10, and you really don't have to make a big adjustment at 40 either. So figure it out. If you want to run a single pin, spend a lot of time with it and just learn that system. And that's something that, shooting, because I'm a gap shooter. I'm what I call an instinctive gap shooter, hybrid gap shooter with my recurve. But that's taught me a whole lot about running a single pin, because if I'm looking at the arrow tip, I'm not raising it up a whole bunch from 15 to 20. There's not a whole bunch of change from 15 to 20. And so if you're and that's with a bow going 172 feet per second. Yeah. And so if you're running a persist, it's running, 290, 298, maybe it's even pushing 300. If you're running a persist, you're not changing at all. I mean, hold on the money and shoot it.
People overthink it, man. I always say play small ball. Keep it simple. Because the more you got going on, the more you're going to get confused. And when I was little coming up, I didn't have nobody teach me how to bow hunt. I had to figure it out as I went. And when I had those multi-pin sights, if old doe come out there and she was probably 30 yards, well, I would freak out, because back then I didn't have a rangefinder. I couldn't afford one. I'd use the wrong pin.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If I'd have had that, and finally it clicked with me, I need one pin set at 27 yards. 27 yards, I can do all the damage I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started killing deer. And dude, that stayed with me forever. And then the roll pins come out, and, a lot of people, everybody's got their own opinion about them, but it's your bow might not work for me. My bow might not work for you. It's what you got confidence in.
Yeah.
And if you don't got confidence in what you're shooting, you're beat before you ever even get out of the truck. Because in my head, I want to know I'm dead nuts to 100 yards with my bow practicing. That way, when that deer comes in at 50 or 60 or 40, I'm like shooting at 20. It's all mental. Mm-hmm. It's all a mind game. Because if you sit there and practice at 20 yards all year long with a stop behind your deer target, you create yourself target panic. Do that. And then go shoot a deer that don't have a stop behind it, you'll freak out. I've seen all my buddies do it. I'm like, dude, you're creating something that, that you can't fix in the drop of a hat, because it goes back to that when you go to squeeze, you go into panic mode. Well, I might miss, or I'm not, this ain't comfortable to me. You got to make it comfortable for yourself so it works for you when you're in the field, is the way I look at it. And to keep it simple, and because there's so much awesome products out now. I mean, this just mind-boggling. And I mean, there's so much stuff to pick from. yeah, I want to use the best, but I only use the best that I can keep the simplest.
Right.
Because that way, like the battery powered sights. Yeah, those are awesome. But in my head, I'm like, what the crap's going to happen if my battery goes dead? That's the first thing I think of, And I've seen guys in camps with Garmin's and so forth that, yeah, man, they're awesome. I'd shoot them in the yard all day long. But I seen one guy in Ohio, it cost him probably 180-inch deer because he accidentally left the sight on and he went to go draw on that joker. And he's 10, 15 yards. Guess what? Sight wouldn't come on.
Yeah.
Guess what? He missed. And I'm just like, why would you want to put yourself in that predicament?
Have you tried the Swift Duo yet? You would like that sight.
I got 2 of them sitting on my workbench right now. I'm about to go on a bow. And I played with them a little bit last year, but my confidence was in the React one, where it's always been since I guess day one. And I am going to have one-on-one bow. I'm going to use it, but I'm still shy to it, I guess. But the thing I like about it though is you can use it battery, but also you can put a tape on it.
Yeah.
So
what I would tell people, the best thing for me the way to set that up would be, again, find the optimal position for that top pin. So say it's at 27.
Mm-hmm.
And if 27, if with that 27-yard pin, you feel comfortable shooting at 40, then run that bottom reference pin at 50. That way from 20 to 50, you're good to go. Anything out to 40, you're using that top pin. If it's at 50, use that second reference pin. And that's going to give you, that's 50 yards where you don't got to mess with it. And I would tell people this: if you're shooting anything past 50, I don't care if it's a pig, an elk, a bear, a deer. I don't care. If you're shooting anything past 50, you need to range that deer, know the perfect yardage, and dial that pin to that exact yardage anyways. So that's why I only run a 3-pin. Some people like a 4th pin on a like a hybrid slider. That's why I only run a 3-pin, because if I'm going to shoot past 40, if I'm going to take a shot at 50, I want to dial that bottom pin exactly to the exact 48.5 yards and shoot it. So that's why I like that sight, because it can get me a whole lot of range. But then if I really want to take a far shot, I can dial it right into the money.
You got options.
Yeah, 100%.
You got options.
100%. So where are you starting your season at?
Oh, probably Tennessee if we got some deer showing up. Up there where we hunted at last year, and up there with some of my buddies, and then got there, Kentucky. If we get something showing up in Georgia, we'll probably give it a swing at Georgia, and Oklahoma, Missouri bow, Missouri gun, Illinois shotgun, late muzzleloader and bow, Ohio, Mexico, Texas.
That's quite the rounds.
And then if you want to go on some cool trip or something, just let me know. I guess we'll try to figure it out.
Yeah,
I'm wanting to get into the more Western stuff. I think something different. Just to say, or just to prove to myself, not to anybody else, I can go kill a bull elk, or I can go kill a different realm of animal.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to do that for a while, but I just hadn't. It's just everything's so expensive now. And if I go blow, half of my budget on that and something goes sideways and we don't be successful, I'm going to be sitting there holding the bag going, oh God, what are we going to do? And, that's just too much, too risky. I would rather do my deer stuff because I love them more than anything. And like I always say, if they'd let me get out of the stand and pet them, I wouldn't have to kill them. But since they don't, I have to kill them to pet them. So
yeah, that's my thing, dude. Like, I love elk hunting, but it takes so much. I only go on a Western hunt every other year. I don't try to do it every year because it takes so much time, effort, energy, money. I've got an elk hunt in September, and right now that's all I'm training for. I'm working out every day to try to get in shape. I'm shooting at further distances, bigger targets. I put away the deer target, I get out the elk target, and that's what I'm practicing on. And so then it's like, okay, well, I got through September, so now it's already October, and then I started thinking about deer. And so it just takes
Yeah.
so much time and effort and energy. I will say this though, that I'm getting ready for elk season. I've been relying heavily on the Mountain Ops products. And right now they just launched their 10-year anniversary sale. So everything is 30% off. But if you use the code typical, all caps typical, you'll get it 30% off and free shipping. So that's the biggest sale. That's the best you're going to find on Mountain Ops. So, full line of products. I just drank it Ignite before the podcast. That's kind of my midday pick me up. That's my, before I do a podcast, gives me mental clarity, gives me some energy boost. I use that, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. Probably shouldn't say that because that's a little bit too much caffeine, but definitely go check out Mountain Ops.
That's dad life.
Yeah, for sure.
That's dad life. And running a business, that's dad life.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely going to go type in that typical code and probably get me some, because that's one thing when I say my prayers, I'm like, Lord, please don't let me get tired.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't let me get tired.
And the reason that I'm a big coffee guy, I'm a coffee addict. I love coffee.
I'm the same way.
But I do like energy drinks too. And so I started relying on that Ignite because it's, $45 for a container of 45 servings. So that's $1 energy drink. You get 200 milligrams of caffeine. You get mental clarity. It's just awesome. So you're getting 45 energy drinks for $1 a piece. And right now with 10% off or with 30% off and free shipping, it makes it like $35 a container. So definitely head over to Mountain Ops, check out that sale. Everything's 30% off, but if you use the code typical, you'll get free shipping as well. So go check it out. Support a good company. Listen, they share my Christian beliefs. They use their money to help feed the hungry with sending meals overseas to starving children. I mean, it's an incredible company to support. So go check it out. This is their biggest sale of the year. So I would definitely get it right now. So you're ending in Mexico or Texas?
I'll probably end in Bama because we'll run to February 10th there.
Oh yeah. Rednecks. They can kill stuff for like 9 months out of the year.
Yeah. And then if I really want to get jiggy with it, I can just go to Texas and shoot stuff all year long. Because they always got something to kill and shoot at anyway.
Yeah.
And,
the patron state of killing stuff is what that is.
No, I tell you what, I always wanted to live in the Midwest, but I think if it come down to it, I would live somewhere right there, Texas, Oklahoma, man.
Yeah.
Like on the Red River, because it's the best of both worlds. You got mega giant deer, and then there's a season open for something always open in Texas.
Yeah.
And
100%.
But I'll probably stay in Alabama and Georgia till the day I die, so I'll just drive like I've been doing.
Redneck till I die.
That's right.
It's because you just fit in so well
redneck.
there. Yeah. You're not first class, but you're not white trash. You're wild and a little crazy too.
That should be a song.
Yeah, it should be. We should make some money on that song.
Sure. For sure. Where are you going hunting? You got your elk hunt?
Elk hunt, man. And again, that's just taking up so much time and so much effort and energy. Really, I think after that, I've got Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas. I don't put in I don't go a whole lot of different states. You can buy 2 tags in Oklahoma, so that's going to take up a lot of time. What
do you think about Oklahoma going up on their permits?
Yeah, man, I think it's one of those deals.
I think it's gonna hurt them. My opinion.
Yeah,
I'm still gonna buy it for sure. You're still gonna buy it, but I think the average Joe is, and I'm not throwing salt on anybody because I'm blue collar just like everybody else. But the average guy that works a 40-hour week, like they're driving that class out of deer hunting. My opinion. Because they're just keep going up, land prices going up, fees going up, and it's just, man, it's getting out of hand.
Well, so many states, Colorado is going to a draw state for out-of-state elk, and Oklahoma's raising their tax. Now, Oklahoma, man, I question what they're doing anyways. For those of you that follow the conservation world, they have basically all but decided that they're going to release captive deer that have shown immunity to CWD. They're going to release those deer into the wild to hopefully cure CWD, there's some problems that arise with that. And if you read the articles put out by the NDA, if you read the articles put out by Meat Eater, there's some problems with that. And I think that problems will occur with that. But Oklahoma, man, it's such a fun state to hunt because it's exactly like you said. There's not many states like Oklahoma where you can still get two tags as a non-resident, but you can hunt the stinking desert. You can hunt, big woods. You go down to the Kiamichi Mountains. It is thick, thick, thick. You can hunt rolling hills if you go, like I hunt in Pawhuska, big rolling hills. And there's just so much variety to hunt in Oklahoma as far as landscape goes, that it's just a fun state to hunt. And it's a sleeper state. You can kill big deer. You don't, for other places that you can kill big deer, it's a draw state, and then it's still that expensive. If you draw in Kansas, it's a draw state and the tags are still outrageously expensive. Oklahoma, I think they're going up to what, $600, something like that.
I think it's $750. Don't hold me to it.
Something like that. It's doubled or more in price.
Because it's always been $350, and I think it's either $6 or $7, which I still think is a good deal because you get $2, like you said, and then your doe tags for your venison or so forth. And but yeah, that on the conservation side, them doing that, as bad as I hate to say this, people always find a way to screw something up that's really, really good. And I hope and pray that they don't do that to that state because it's very special. Yeah. Like there's not another one like it. Like in my head, business wise, I know I can go to Oklahoma or Texas in 3 days, more likely shoot a really good deer, make a show out of it, and lay down some gnarly content. And I could do that in 3 days and have triple the content that I could in the Midwest.
Right.
Because it's a different world down there, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun state to hunt. And for people who are looking for out-of-state opportunities, it's a great, great opportunity. It's centrally located essentially. So not an incredibly long drive for a lot of people. Especially if you're in Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, you can be there, in a few hours and be hunting 2 more bucks. That's the thing. I live on the Oklahoma border. I can hunt Oklahoma in about 25 minutes. I can be in Oklahoma. No. And so that's for me, Kansas, I only get $1 even as a resident. And so for me, it's a no brainer. It's like I drive 25 more minutes and I get 2 more bucks. And I've got places in Oklahoma that I hunt that are I'm hunting the same properties I hunt here in Kansas. What I mean by that is the southern borders, I hunt in Kansas and the southern border hits, and then I'm hunting in Oklahoma. Same property, I'm scouting the same deer. I jump the border and I'm hunting the same deer. For $600, I'm killing 2 more bucks. And it's a no brainer for a lot of people. But yeah, it's something that, when I found out about the tags going up, I thought, well, crap. That's always been just an easy $350 and I'm going to kill a couple more bucks. But now it's, the prices went up.
Now it's jumped up.
Yeah. And it's honestly a state I've used a lot to get people involved in hunting. Somebody reaches out and like, I've always wanted to hunt. Can we get on a hunt together? And I'm like, well, you missed the Kansas draw, but meet me in Oklahoma. You got to spend $350, but we can go hunt. And, now it's a little bit harder for somebody who's in that boat to swallow $700.
That much more money.
Yeah. It's doubled. And so, like you said, I'm still going to hunt it and there'll still be a lot of people hunting it, but, and that's part of the conservation efforts that states are making. They have to figure out, they've got to find that sweet spot of, well, if we raise it this much, are we going to have as many out-of-state hunters as we need? And from an income standpoint, if they lose half their hunters, they're at the same income standpoint. If they lose 30% of the hunters, they're making more money as a state. And so that all comes into play for those states making those decisions. Alaska, for non-residents, just changed it to 1 Sitka buck instead of 3. And they're going to have to look at that and say, are we going to retain enough non-residents coming to Alaska to hunt Sitka bucks to meet our quota? We're going to have to go back up to 2, or we're going to have to take it all the way back up to 3. And they have to make those decisions and look at, and luckily people much more intelligent than me on deer herds and are making those decisions because I don't know how they do it sometimes, but they have to make those decisions on, are we meeting our quotas? Are we as a state raising enough money for conservation by doing this? And so a lot goes into consideration. And so Oklahoma, in 5 years might change it back. They might increase it more. Maybe we didn't lose enough non-resident hunters.
Yeah. Well, my thing is too, I mean, yeah, you're right 100% on all that. But everywhere I go, there's so many, little mom and pop stores. And I'm old school. I hate change. And there's nothing no better than going to an old mom and pop store, gas station, or little diner and hanging out with all the OGs that growed up there, men that's 70, 80 plus years old, and learning stuff from them that you can learn
100%.
nowhere else. And you gain a lot of connections that way. Well, a lot of these, business owners, they depend on us hunters
coming into town.
Like they count on us. That's probably 60, 70% of their money. Illinois, some part of Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, I mean, wherever. And like they depend on that because I smile in some places, or like Illinois or Huntington Pike County. Like all the restaurants, just about it right now are shut down. They won't open up till fall.
Yeah.
But they got big banners out front. Welcome all
hunters. Yeah.
Welcome all hunters. And that makes me smile because I'm going to go in, I'm going to give them my hard-earned money, and I'm going to eat some good food because they thought enough of me and it ain't for me, it's for everybody, but to put that banner outside, you dang around, I'm going to go spend my money there.
Yeah.
And so many people overlook that, and I could rant about that all day, but, when the states do stuff like that, it just don't affect me or you or Bob over here or, Waddell or whoever. It affects those locals' money income. Like it starts
100%.
messing with them, and it won't be long before I could see, some of them, trying to make a change,
Yeah.
And because the way the world is now, we never know what tomorrow's going to bring, and everything's so outrageously high. It's tough. It's tough for any man to afford to be able to do something on the side with a family.
Takes a big toll on outfitters, something that people don't ever think about. If an outfitter loses 10 clients because, if a state goes to a draw state, or if a state raises their tags and people can't afford it, I mean, it takes a big toll on outfitters. It takes a big toll. If you're talking Alaska, it takes a big toll on brush pilots. It takes a big toll on a big toll.
It affects everybody.
Yeah.
It affects everybody. It
100%.
just don't affect us. It's a chain reaction. It's a domino effect.
Right.
Once you hit that one, it affects all of us.
Yeah. Well, guys, we've went on big enough of a rant about tags changing, but that's the world we live in, and hunters are constantly looking at, opportunities, and constantly looking at draw states, and constantly looking at, where should I put all my eggs in one basket? Should I go all in here? Should I? And so I would encourage people to take all of this into consideration when you think about where can I hunt? Where can I go? What should I try? There are some great states that offer incredible opportunities that don't cost an arm and a leg. You can hunt in some really good states. I mean, Arkansas, the deer aren't fantastically cool as far as size go. But I can go there as a non-resident and hunt for dirt cheap. And it gives me the opportunity to be in the woods. It gives me the opportunity to go out and try something new. That's the only time I sit in a tower blind with a rifle, because that's how my dad hunts. And so it gives me that opportunity to just go back to the Ozarks and hunt for cheap. And so look for those opportunities. And then as these things start to change, don't just take it as like, well, they don't want us there no more. Well, no, they still have to do what's best for their state. They still have to raise money for conservation efforts. They still have to keep deer populations in check. It's not just, well, they're trying to shut down our seasons. That's not it. They might need to cut back on the deer that are being killed. They might need to be generating some more revenue for conservation efforts. And so there's a lot that goes into those decisions that I'm sure glad I don't have to make the decisions. But so don't always take it as a bad thing. Sometimes it's, deer herds aren't growing like they need to, so they need to cut back or what for whatever reason. So
yeah.
But that's a big enough rant, like I said. Matt, I appreciate your time, man. You need to get home to the boys and go play with them, man. I know you've been on the road, so go get some rest, man. And can't wait to see what you do this fall.
Thank you, buddy. I enjoyed it like always, and I guess I'll see you sooner than later, eh?
Yes, sir. Sure will.
All right. See you, buddy.